Okay, so I peeked my head into Hogsworth confirmation ceremony, and I really don't want to watch very much of it because it's triggering, and I just know that guy so well because he's basically every freaking toxic vet bro that I ever served with. And he doesn't believe that women should be in combat. Geez, if only one of the first women on a deliberate ground combat team in U.S. Army history had written a book about all the things we discovered by putting women into combat, that it was only a value add and it only helped us out. Meanwhile, in his book, he talks multiple times about how it should only be boys. Signed copies of Uncultured attached here. Let's get into this. Because I think he's just the most toxic trash ever. I'm Daniella, scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership, former Captain Mestyanek of the U.S. Army, and one of the women on these teams, okay? Where we answered the question they've been asking for 243 years, are women good enough to be men? And presupposing that men do war the best. And what we found out was that when both men and women are trying to unalive you, it makes a lot of sense to have both men and women on your team. Maybe I can't carry a 300-pound dude out of firefight, but you can't fit through the tiny hole that I can to open up the gates. It's almost like we've known for a long, long time that having different tools are helpful when running military operations. I also believe he is the kind of toxic vet bro who I've written about in Uncultured, who is totally okay with torture and is absolutely going to bring it back. That was the part I peeked my head into, where he was saying, like, Geneva Conventions, law of the land, waterboarding being illegal is the law of the land. But, you know, in his book, he's written all about how we can't fight wars according to rules made by 80 years ago by men in a boardroom, and basically advocating for the use of torture as he thinks it should apply to American fighting, including just a lot of relaxations of the Geneva Conventions. He's one of these toxic bros that talks about ROE, rules of engagement, all of the time, because they just want to go out and slaughter people with impunity, quite frankly. I'm going to read you a little bit that I wrote about this kind of bro in what? My best-selling book that you can get on audio also? Yes, I am. This is a chapter called You're Not James Bond. And we are in spy school in Arizona becoming intelligence officers, which is how I found myself months later, incredulous as I looked around the room, watching American officer after American officer defend the concept of torturing other human beings. I had been 16 in 2003 when the torture at American-run Iraqi prisoner of war camp Abu Ghraib made international headlines. At the time, I'd been drowning in my first year of high school and trying to figure out life outside the cult, so I only had the vaguest memories of the incident. But I took it all in as I saw those pictures for the first time on a giant screen in front of me. As the captain at the front of the room talked about the difference between what had been defined by the Bush administration as enhanced interrogation techniques, things like stress positions, sleep deprivation, and the infamous waterboarding, versus what he called real torture. Torture was what the bad guys did, like cutting off fingers and pulling out teeth. We didn't do that stuff. We were the good guys. We were always the good guys. But I couldn't see a difference. I looked around the room and felt certain none of these people had ever spent any time in endless isolation. Maybe it was easy to call stress positions humane when you never had to hold the King James Bible in your outstretched arms for an unspecified period of time before you were even old enough to read it. Maybe they had never been subjected to days of imposed silence where you have nothing to do but chew your own skin and sift through your own thoughts. People ask me why I'm always knitting. They didn't know that hunger, sleep deprivation, uncertainty, and horror will get people to say anything, do anything to make it stop. Well, as one of the few of us who's already been to war, said one of the prior service lieutenants, who's basically this guy, who had crossed over from being a staff sergeant and already had years of experience as an interrogator, which he reminded us of in every conversation. I can promise you that these are the bad guys. If I have to torture 1,000 innocent people in order to save one American life, I'll do it. No question. I studied one face to the next, each nodding in agreement and mumbling confirmation of their righteous rage at anyone who dared to not be an American. How was it possible that 9 out of the 10 most intelligent, competitive, best of their class Army officers were casually and publicly expressing their belief that torture is justified for any reason, not to mention against the innocent? But I knew it was part of why I had never really felt at home, never American enough. I hadn't gotten the same indoctrination as everyone else growing up. America does what the Army does, just at a larger and more insidious scale. The programming begins at birth. America is the greatest country on earth. We are the best, down with all the rest. And if we have to torture 1,000 innocent people to prove it, so be it. When you believe you're the best, the chosen ones, then the end can always be made to justify the means. And that's who I think he is. I think he will do anything, say anything to get into this position. He was a briefer. He studied counterinsurgency. He sounds good. And he also has 3 Yahtzee tattoos. And I am 1,000% certain has assaulted his female colleagues in the past. And he'll probably get confirmed. Captain Mestyanek out. Bet you anything my book's better than his.